Computers have revolutionized our lives. They affect us all. Some for the worse, but mostly for the better. Almost a year ago, my laptop changed my life, but for the worse. I was stuck in Salt Lake City for a week-long meeting. It was my first evening away from home, and I called home as usual. And what? I got to enjoy watching an erotic sex show live on my computer. Despite her advanced age, the woman on my small 14-inch screen had all the right curves in the right places, hips and breasts. She moved her hips slowly. She leaned in slightly, their lips met, and they shared a long, lustful kiss. Then they had lewd sex. I've had enough. I exited the program and turned off the computer. I didn't really want to watch what I just witnessed. In fact, the whole thing disgusted me. The woman on the screen was none other than my beautiful wife, Martha. And this intense debauchery took place in our home in Sacramento. Martha is a beautiful 47-year-old woman. After almost 25 years of marriage and 2 grown children, she is still a very sensual woman with all the right curves. I am Bob McLeod, a 49-year-old architect, loving husband of 25 years, and now a cuckold. I had known for a long time that something was wrong between me and Martha. She was detached, was often distracted when she was alone with me, barely listened to me, and our lovemaking was sporadic at best. I'm suspicious of her new habit of working late at work and on weekends. So, as my trip approached, it became clear that I had to find a way to keep an eye on her while I was away. It wasn't very difficult, just expensive. I had several motion-activated video cameras installed throughout the house under the guise of a new security system. I could monitor every camera from anywhere in the world. In a way, I'm glad I discovered her infidelity that evening. After a few minutes of feeling sorry for myself, my anger took over. With no outlet to release it, this anger simply raised my blood pressure to a new peak, and the first thing I knew was that I had collapsed. I knew something was wrong, very wrong. I had time to call 9.1.1 and gave them my number at the Hilton, and I hung up. I woke up later that night in the ICU. Long story short, a few days later, after numerous tests, I learned that I was suffering from advanced endocarditis. Most of my heart valves were severely damaged. In just a few days, I found out twice that my heart was broken. Figuratively speaking, I was heartbroken when I discovered that my 25-year marriage was over and that my loving wife was nothing more than a cheating and lying slut. I was also literally heartbroken when I learned that without a heart transplant, I had very little time to live, a year at most. Under any other circumstances, I'm pretty sure I would have taken the long, slow route out of my marriage to Martha. But now I didn't have time to waste. All alone, bedridden in an unfamiliar city hospital, all I could do was plan the next few months, my last few months. Yes, I'm a sore loser, and it's true that I mainly plan to take revenge on my wife and her lover. Well, sue me. I'm sure I won't be there. If that's the case, it will come before the trial. Only my aversion to firearms kept me from flying home and shooting at the scene of the crime. Also the fact that I couldn't fly. I had a long ambulance ride all the way home. My brother Steve was surprised when an ambulance pulled up to his home in Elk Grove, California. There was no way I was going home, and I didn't want to force myself on my children. Survived by my twin brother Steve. When a stranger or an acquaintance looks at us, they cannot tell us apart. But everyone close to you can notice the difference. One of the big differences is that I only have one kidney, just like Steve. But I have a right kidney, and he has a left one, my kidney. You see, Steve traveled a lot in his early 20s. He didn't know he had a severe infection. He allowed this to undermine his health for several months. And when doctors found out about it, he was close to death from kidney failure. After several tests and surgery, he was back on his feet with one of my kidneys. No wonder I turned to him in my time of need. I didn't need to ring the bell. While the medic was pushing me in my wheelchair towards the house, company policy, since I can walk on my own, the front door opened and Steve came out. Bob, what the hell is going on? What does all of this mean? Ambulance and wheelchair? Well, Steve, I'm glad to see you too, I said, getting out of the wheelchair. I turned to the medic to shake his hand. "Thank you, buddy. Want to grab a coffee before heading back to Salt Lake City?" "No, thanks. I will go. Take care of yourself." I looked at him as he slowly walked towards the ambulance. I walked past Steve and entered the house, my little brother following at my heels, just as he did 49 years ago when he followed me about an hour later, turning my mom's ordeal into a nightmare. Now I understand why my mother loved me the most. I went to the refrigerator, grabbed 2 beers, and sat down at the table, offering one to Steve. He waited a moment before asking again what was wrong with me. "Well, I'm screwed. I don't think there's a better way to say it. First of all, my heart is like Swiss cheese, and there aren't many miles left in it. I have less than a year to live," the doctor said. Upon hearing this statement, my brother jumped up from his chair, stunned, with an expression of pain on his face. "Oh, Bob, it's horrible. Can't they do the same as they did to me? Transfer?" Well, I was included in the list of recipients, but the doctor said that I had little chance. "Do you remember that we have rare blood? Add to that my age and the fact that I'm only working on 1 kidney, and I'm not very high on the priority list." "This sucks," my brother said, leaning back in his chair. "How does Martha react to the news?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked at him, and it gave him time to connect the dots. He looked at me when he realized that Martha probably didn't know. "Oh my God, she doesn't know, does she?" "You came here straight from Salt Lake," my brother concluded. "What's going on, Bob? Why didn't you go home?" "Steve, I discovered that I have a heart condition after I had a heart attack in Salt Lake City," I told him. "And I had a heart attack after I discovered that Martha was cheating on me. It almost killed me. And, okay, how did you know that she was cheating on you?" asked Steve. "It doesn't matter how," I answered him. "I only have a few months left to live, and I don't want it to hurt me even more. This bitch made an attempt on my life. I won't even divorce her." "What will you do?" asked Steve. "First, I will get my hands on as much cash as I can. I'm really going to enjoy these next few months. Second, I will change my will and life insurance. This bitch will never get anything out of my death. Everything for the children." A thought just occurred to me. Were they my children? How long has she been cheating on me? "What?" Steve asked, noticing my silence. "How bad is this? I don't even know if these are my children. I will need to do some DNA tests." "Stop! Don't go there, brother," Steve said soothingly. "If you only have a few months to live, you don't need to break your heart. Don't wake a sleeping dog. You are right. Either way, I'm completely exhausted. I need to lie down. But not a word to Martha while I sleep. I only have a few months left to live, and I need my brother," I said. Steve came over and hugged me. The next morning, Steve took the day off. Then he became my driver for the day. The first stop was the bank. I cleared out everything I could from our savings and cashed out everything we had in our safe. The total amount was about $150,000. Secondly, I went to my employer, gave him all the necessary paperwork from the doctor, and resigned on the spot for medical reasons. I could swear I saw a tear appear in my cool boss's eyes. Within an hour, I had a check for all of my accrued vacation time, my unpaid salary, and my 401k. By lunchtime, I had over $500,000 in cash and checks, and the checks would be cashed as soon as I could. Right after lunch, I had an appointment with a lawyer. Steve pounced on me to tell him exactly what I was planning to do. I asked him to trust me with everything, and promised that by the end of the day, he would know everything. When we arrived, my lawyer had everything ready. I signed a few papers, leaving everything I still had that I couldn't cash out to my kids, and Steve signed as a witness. It was a country cottage that I inherited from my parents, my car, my boat, and a few other toys. I then signed a power of attorney for Martha, giving her rights to the full amount that she could receive from the sale of the family home. We already had about $250,000 in equity, and that was going to be her share of our property. I gave the lawyer the letter to give to Martha when he met with her the next day. "Dear wife, you meanly hit me in the back. I would never have believed that the day would come when I would call you a fucking cheater. This is the only name I can use since I found out that you betrayed me, that you stabbed me in the back, that you cheated on me. I loved you and I really thought you loved me. Now I know the truth. You will receive a power of attorney giving you the right to sell the house. I withdrew everything else from our bank accounts. Home is your share in our life together. I'm not a thief, and everything is divided equally. I won't even divorce you. I'll just be glad I never see you again. I'll just leave you and hope you die in agony soon. Go to hell. Bob. Steve read over my shoulder as I wrote the letter. Well, I see that you are old enough to not let your pain dictate, my brother, Steve said with a sparkle in his eyes. Dad always said that you should never let your emotions rule your life, I answered. I then went to my insurance agent to change the beneficiary of my life insurance. The benefit will be shared between my two children. I didn't tell the poor guy that there was a good chance his company would soon pay out on my policy. By the end of the day, I was exhausted again. Steve took me to his house because I really needed some rest. The next day, I woke up early and looked at my brother as he left for work. He suggested asking for another day off, but I insisted on not changing his behavior too much. As soon as he left, I returned to my room, packed my things, and called a taxi. 2 hours later, I was already flying to Acapulco. I knew Steve or the kids would never be able to keep the secret from Martha for long, and I was determined to spend the next few months away from this woman. I needed to enjoy life as much as possible, and being away from my wife was a very good start. I rented a villa and hired a cookmaid to help. She was very helpful and she was nice to boot. I also contacted a world-renowned Mexican cardiologist. 2 weeks later, I called my children and brother to inform them of my whereabouts. As for my brother, this was in addition to the note I left him, explaining that I had to leave the country but would call him soon. "Damn it, Bob, why did you run away like that?" asked my brother. "And guess who your wife came to for comfort?" "Crap. It's okay, Steve. I know you can play the role of an attentive guy," I said. "Anyway, I'm calling to let you know that I live in Mexico and I really like it. Next week, the children will come to visit me, but they promised to hide it from their mother. What about you? Could you come over after this?" "We agreed," my brother answered. "I'll take a vacation. Where are you?" "Just get on a plane to Acapulco, give me the flight number, and someone will come get you," I said. "You don't trust me to keep a secret, brother?" It sounds like this: cloak and dagger. "I didn't even tell the kids about it. I do not want to risk it. I met Stevie at the airport. We grabbed his bags and headed to the waiting limousine. Our destination was a good hour's drive from Acapulco, practically in the country city. As we approached Villa del Corazon, Steve was impressed. "Holy shit, Bob. Is this the villa you rented?" "No, this is an extension to my doctor's medical center. Sorry about that, but I had a pre-arranged meeting here on the day you arrived," I said. "Come with me. The limousine driver will deliver your luggage to me while we wait for the doctor who will examine me." We went inside and the nurse showed us to the waiting room. We were the only customers. Shortly after she left, an orderly came in and offered us a drink. We both took a glass of fresh juice. "Firework!" I said, raising my glass towards my brother. "Firework!" I downed the glass of juice in one swift motion, and Steve followed suit. "So what's wrong with this doctor?" asked my brother. "Does he have a miracle cure that no one knows about in the USA?" "No, but he is a famous heart transplant surgeon." "Oh, I take it he is a very good surgeon?" "Well, I don't know if he's any good. I chose him because he has a rather vague sense of ethics," I said. Steve looked at me curiously. "I don't understand." "Free ethics? What do you mean?" "Well, for a good price, he doesn't care where the organ comes from, and for an additional fee, he gets it himself." Steve looked at me in shock. "It's not serious, Bob," he began to say. I don't feel so good. I feel dizzy." I stood up and approached my brother. I took his hand. "Steve, you are my brother, and I would do anything for you," I said, hoping to tell him everything before he passed out. "In fact, I already gave you one of my kidneys. And how did you repay me? Sleeping with my wife. You betrayed the man who saved your life, your own brother. For that, I want my kidney back. And while we're at it, I'll take your heart too. It's time to pay up, brother. Our father always said that we both had our hearts in the right place. This will be true for you pretty soon. I'm not sure he heard my last tirade. I rang the bell and the orderlies returned to the room to prepare us. After many weeks of post-op recovery, I left Mexico and returned to California. I was still too weak to work, so I asked the children to let me live in the cottage. Most of my money was spent, but I had enough left to survive for a few more months without work. Because of my situation, I was unable to receive any unemployment benefits or health insurance. Steve's disappearance did not go unnoticed. In fact, it was my dear wife who brought this fact to light. As soon as I arrived, the children told me that everyone was looking for their Uncle Steve and that their mother had contacted the police. The following week, a police detective came to the cottage and asked if I had any information about Steve's whereabouts. I told him I last saw him in Mexico and he was alive and well, but I haven't heard from him since then. The inspector, of course, sensed something was wrong, but whatever it was in another country, and there was nothing he could do about it. He showed up a few times just to see if I was going to break down and confess, but then his visits stopped. I knew that the day would come when I would have to meet my wife face to face. It was a warm summer day, and I was working in a cottage, topless, painting an old barn. I didn't hear her come. "So this is where you're hiding?" "No." "I'm not hiding," I said, without even turning around and applying paint to the wall. "Everyone who matters in my life, these are my 2 children, know where to find me." "And I? Am I not counting?" asked Martha. "No more," was my simple answer. She sat silently for some time. "I never had a chance to tell you how sorry I am, Bob," she said very timidly. I realized that she would stay here unless I kicked her out. I put the brush back into the paint can and turned around. Her eyes almost popped out of their sockets when she saw the very red T-shaped scar I had on my chest, a remnant of my heart transplant history. "Look, if it makes you feel any better, just say your piece and then get the hell out of here. You have to understand that I don't care about you now, one way or another." I saw tears streaming down her face, but I also noticed that it left me without any emotion. None. No anger, no pity. Absolutely nothing. "What is this?" she asked, pointing her finger at my chest. I became irritated. "Just a scar. I needed a heart transplant and I got it." "About." "That's all," she said. "Did the police ask about Steve?" "Yes." "And what did you tell them?" "The truth. That I have no idea where he is, but that a piece of him will forever remain with me, right here." And I tapped myself on the sternum, where my new heart was. I turned to grab the T-shirt. This was a mistake, as it gave Martha a good view of the scar from the newly opened access to my left kidney. "What happened to the scar after the kidney surgery?" I was annoyed and made another mistake. "Yes, and they gave me back my old kidney," I said. It took some time for Martha to understand. I saw her face turn pale, and then she turned and ran away, without even saying goodbye. "Bitch!" It's a good thing I didn't offer her one of my last beers. Shortly after that, I received the divorce papers, signed them, sent them back, and never saw her again. For those wondering, DNA showed that my children are indeed mine.